Welcome to Blind Level Tech. This isn't just accessible tech talk. This is technology on a whole new level. We're showing you just how possible it is to live the life you want.
Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of Blind Level Tech. My name is Evan Starnes, and I am the host. Now, today I wanted to start a sort of mini series that I'll kind of add on to sporadically. And I wanted to do a series particularly on the National Library Service, which encompasses organizations like the Colorado Talking Book Library. And I don't want to go into too much of an explanation of what they are in this episode, just because I really do want to get into today's topic. But basically, we provide our core services. We provide newspapers and some magazines, but content that is updated daily, weekly, and monthly. And they also provide magazines, but their main specialty is audiobooks and, like more long-form content. And that's basically what they are in a nutshell. And the reason I really wanted to cover them is just due to all of the changes in the allocation of funding for organizations, at least here in the United States. I feel like there needs to be some emphasis placed on, the importance of these organizations. And in this case, the National Library Service, and just how vital it is to the blind and low vision community. I'm hoping to do some episodes on at least what they are and kind of their inner workings as far as how they go about producing audiobooks. And so I'm hoping to get somebody, hopefully from like the Colorado Talking Book Library, on within the next, probably the next month or some change. But today's episode, I wanted to talk about the new talking book players that they have just started distributing this year. Since the National Library Service has been around and been distributing audiobooks, they've always had to have some sort of listening equipment, and I guess just some tech trivia, because why not? To my knowledge, the first piece of listening equipment that they really started using was called a flexi disc. And a flexi disc it's basically a record, like a vinyl record, but it's very thin, like paper thin, and super flexible. Obviously, flexi disc is in the name. And they distributed audiobooks on those, and they played at I'm pretty sure they played at 16 revolutions per minute, so super low fidelity audio, but you could fit, I'm not actually sure how much of a book you could fit, or if you could just fit sections. But then they eventually moved on to audio cassettes, and in fact, my first talking book player was a cassette player, and it ran at like half the speed of a normal cassette player, and they were able to actually split the tape into 4 sides. But again, the audio, it was good for audiobooks, but it was still kind of low fidelity just due to the nature of how they had to, record the audio onto the cassette tape. And, the cassette tape players themselves were they had, you could control the speed, adjust the tone, and you could also play, standard cassettes, but there wasn't much else apart from being able to just play back and kind of sort of tweak your playback settings a little bit. But in 2008, they came out with the digital player, and that added a whole bunch of new features, including a sleep timer. The original talking book players came in the standard and advanced models, though. So the standard model only had the ability to play, and you could adjust the speed, tone, and you had a sleep timer. The advanced model, though, they added the ability to get information about where you were in the book. You could add bookmarks, and you could jump by specific intervals. So you could jump by like chapter versus phrase versus paragraph, just depending on the content. So, just a lot more navigability. I don't know if that's a word, but it is now. But those have been around for years. And if you got a player from the Talking Book library, you were most certainly going to get one of those. And they're actually made by and distributed by Humanware. So if you've used like the Victor Reader Stream, it actually sounds pretty similar. And you could download audiobooks from NLS Bard and download them to a thumb drive or a digital cartridge and play them. Or, of course, you could receive talking books from the library on digital cartridge. I'm sure this information is not new information to a lot of us, but just, for those who haven't, heard of the Talking Book Library, or if you have just now lost your vision or sighted, whatever it might be. But they, of course, technology since 2008, of course, has, gotten significantly better. And, obviously these players they were getting pretty due for an upgrade, at least in my opinion. So this year they've started distributing the new DA2 model. So the DA2 has a lot of significant little upgrades that I am going to highlight in this episode. So let's first of all start out with like a direct comparison between the two. Now, I don't actually have one in front of me. I have contacted the Talking Book Library, though, and am trying to get one. And if I do, you bet I will definitely be at least BLT biting it a little bit. But I do have an advanced player, the original digital Talking Book player. So I'm just going basically off of what I got from National Library Services website, but it's going to be the same size as the original digital player, and it'll still have the differently shaped buttons with Braille next to each of them. Obviously, of course, you can still play books off of a thumb drive or digital cartridge, but now they've actually added, well, first of all, I think one of the biggest upgrades they've added is Wi-Fi. And, well, with Wi-Fi comes the ability to connect the player to your Bard account, and you can just download audiobooks from Bard straight to the player. And the next upgrade they've actually added this is interesting how they've done it. They've added 28 gigabytes of internal storage, and my belief is, they probably did 32 gigabytes, but I'm sure a couple of those gigabytes are being used for the actual main functions of the player itself. But you do have 28 gigs of internal storage, and you could definitely, especially with NLS books, you can fit I don't even know. I still have a hard time filling up a single 8 gigabyte digital cartridge with 20 books. I think it will take a while before you ever really start to run out of storage. I'm not sure yet if you can transfer books that you've downloaded to the internal memory to a digital cartridge. Again, that is something that I intend to find out when I get my hands on one. And also, because it has Wi-Fi, that also means that software updates will be able to be downloaded over the air. Previously, you would install the update, or sometimes, at least what I heard from the Talking Book Library, the software update files would actually come on just any national, NLS Talking Book cartridge that you would get, and they would automatically be applied to the player. And so you'd put your cartridge in, and it would, I forget exactly what it did, but it'd take a couple of minutes. It would do some beeping, and it would apply the updates. But now, of course, it can automatically check for updates and install them as needed. And of course, with Wi-Fi, besides Wi-Fi, they've added Bluetooth as well. So if you have, Bluetooth headphones or speakers, which a lot of us do, then you are now able to connect them to your Talking Book player. Now, what I'm curious about is if you can also connect Bluetooth input, like a Bluetooth keyboard, to the Talking Book player. And I'm only saying that because if you're going to connect this to your Wi-Fi, imagine you're going to have to enter the Wi-Fi password. And unless they've added a 10 key, a number pad to this player, oh man, that is going to be a little challenging, especially if you have a long Wi-Fi password, having to type it in with the controls on the player. So if you can connect like a Bluetooth keyboard to remotely control the player, that'd be pretty cool. So, but you definitely can connect your headphones or speakers, which is awesome. And last and definitely not least, like one of the absolute biggest and most monumental upgrades, I kind of got excited when I read this yesterday. They have added text to speech finally to the Talking Book players, because for the longest time the original digital Talking Book players never had text to speech, and I don't know if the hardware was capable of running an embedded text to speech synthesizer. So what does that mean in simple terms? Well, you could play audio files. So, you could play recorded, music, or, it could play MP3 or WAV files or AAC. Of course, you could play, digital talking books that were already pre-recorded. But if you wanted to read something like a PDF or a Word document or a book from Bookshare, you couldn't on the original digital player because, it didn't have a text-to-speech synthesizer on it. But now that they've added that, you're able to read, any sort of text file you could probably think of. So, if you, let's say, for instance, you have, what I like to do is if I get a manual for, especially a particularly big one for a complicated piece of technology, or maybe even a piece of furniture or something that you're setting up, I like to get like manuals online from like Manuals Lib or something, and those usually come in PDFs, and you could read them in something like VoiceStream, or you could put them on the player and read them on the player itself. Now, this is, I feel like this is the perfect time to kind of, ask a question that I'm sure some of us are probably thinking right now. We have smartphones, we have smart speakers and all this stuff. Why in the world would I want or even need a talking book player? And for us, I could see the reasoning behind that, and that's the thing. Like, you don't need a talking book player to play audiobooks. You also do have the I think it's called My Talking Books skill for the A-Lady, and of course you have the good old Bard mobile app, and that's what I've used for the longest time. I've got my entire collection on there. and you do also have Bard Express for the PC as well. But the reason that I particularly like a talking book player is physical controls, actually, and also not having everything glued, or not having everything tied to my smartphone. And that while it is nice and convenient, I especially nowadays, with just how much we're realizing the impact that phones have, I've personally myself been trying to not use my phone as much during bedtime. So it makes it super easy. I just have all my whatever audiobooks I like, 'cause I like to sleep to audiobooks, have them on the player, and then put my phone down somewhere else, and then it's out of sight or out of mind, pretty much. But I can still listen to, and especially now with this new player, download my favorite audiobooks. That's why I like and prefer to use an NLS player. But again, it might not be for everybody. But if you want to get your hands on one, and you are, of course, you're a patron of a talking book library, it is free. They are, at least according to their website, giving them out in limited quantities. So if you'd like to get one, I will put a link directly to at least to the page with details about the new talking book player in the description of this podcast. But if you go to NLS's website, which is NLS Bard, spelled BARD, .loc.gov. There you'll be able to find more information. And also, if you haven't found your local talking book library, they have a finder there, and you'll be able to do that. Now, as I've stated, I do enjoy a good audiobook. And I like my fiction. I love fantasy and stuff. But, one thing I could stand to honestly read more of, and I tried getting into these a few years ago and just, I don't know, it wasn't the right time. But one thing I'd love to read more of is cookbooks, because then, I can get some more recipes for
the sandwich of the week.
Well, silly little segue there. So over the weekend, I went to the 5280 Burger Bar, and I have the feeling, I was trying to jog my mind, and I feel like I've talked about the 5280 Burger Bar at least once in an episode a long, long time ago. If you out there in the audience are keeping track, well, good on you, shout out, kudos. But I had a really, really good burger called the What the Guac. And I first of all, guacamole on a burger is absolutely fantastic. And add some pickles and some onions and lettuce. You can add tomato if you want. I won't, because I don't like it. And I guess in this case, some 5280 sauce. Yeah, it's a absolutely fantastic burger. And, it's one of those sesame seed buns. So, absolutely fantastic. So yeah, my sandwich, or I guess burger this week, is a What the Guac from 5280 Burger Bar in downtown Denver. Alrighty, everybody, that's going to go ahead. We're going to go ahead and wrap up this episode. And like I said, I will be, I'm hoping to receive an NLS talking book player eventually, the new one. Of course, I do have, I'm probably going to have to trade in my old advanced one, which I've had for years, since I was 8 years old. But yeah, once I get it, I might do at least one, if not maybe a BLT Byte series on the talking book player, and maybe just, unboxing it, getting it set up, connecting it to the Wi-Fi, the differences of this new one from the original. So yeah, and if you guys would like me to do that, definitely feel free to let me know. Send an email to feedback@aftersight.org or call 720-712-8856. Now, talking of BLT bites, there hasn't been one for too long. They have been backburnered just because, I don't know. Honestly, I think the whole move took a lot of bandwidth and whatever. There have been some seriously significant upgrades to the Meta Ray-Ban glasses, and those upgrades, I'm not going to cover them in a full-length BLT episode, but they definitely deserve at least one, if not two, BLT bites. So expect those next week, and look forward to more episodes as they come out. And we will be getting back into having guests on the show. It's just, there's just times like this where there's just like quiet periods where, one, for a couple months you just get slammed with guests, and then all of a sudden, lives get busy, people get busy. I don't know. But I'm looking forward to it. I've missed having guests. It gets kind of lonely here in the office, on this show. But with that being said, I will go ahead and end this episode, and I will talk to you guys again next week.